it's Alex from Risk Academy, and today I wanted to talk about risk owners, not risk ownership, which is a whole different topic, and I don't for a second question that risks have to be owned by somebody in the company. But the concept of risk owners, actually assigning somebody as an owner of a particular risk. And I wanted to raise a question: do we need them as a concept? And I think, as you can probably guess from my introduction, is I feel that this concept, with a very minor exception in some circumstances, is completely unnecessary. So I'm basically saying 99% of the time you don't need to allocate a risk owner to a particular risk. And there are a couple of reasons why. Reason number one is that risk management, as we are talking about it right now, should be integrated into existing processes, existing decision making. So risk management is not a separate standalone activity that you do for the sake of managing risks. It's a tool that you integrate into existing business processes, into existing decision making cycle, so to say. So if that's the case, most of the time the risks will be analyzed as part of a particular decision that already has a very clear owner associated with that. So whenever somebody brings an investment decision, it's absolutely blindly obvious who is responsible for completing that decision. If it's part of an operational decision, it's pretty clear who's responsible for that decision. If it's part of a strategic decision, it's a little bit more tougher because strategic decisions could be owned by a number of people within the organization. But once the ownership for the strategic decision is assigned, and that happens pretty early on in the process, it kind of immediately becomes obvious who should own the risks associated with that strategic decision. It's the same person. So that's number one. The reason that once we sort of integrate risk management into decision making, then it becomes quite apparent who should own all the risks associated with a particular decision. It's the same person who owns the responsibility for the decision itself. So that's number one. Second one is the concept of risk ownership kind of implies that we are doing this for the sake of managing risks. So our ultimate objective is to manage risk, which is rubbish. It has nothing to do with reality. Our ultimate objective is to make decisions, is to make better business, is to make money by considering and taking risks into account. So there is usually an ownership of the activities that I've just described, and we don't really need another layer of ownership of just the risks, because risks, they are sort of an intermediary side product of decision making. They're not a sole purpose in themselves. They're not the end product, and that's why I think most of the time, and unless something extraordinary happens, most of the time the risk ownership is so obvious, it's so inherently integrated into whoever makes that decision or whoever makes that business activity, is that by doing it, you're just literally wasting time and resources and distracting people from what is important. I'm sure, I said except with some extraordinary cases, but reality is I can't think of one. In my 13 years of risk, which means nothing, by the way, I've only had limited exposure to a particular type of companies and countries, so it's not in any way representative, but in my 13 years of experience, I have never come an instance where you needed where you need to explicitly state that you own this risk, that it wasn't just that obvious already. Once you sort of integrate it into decision making. So, but since I'm sort of broadcasting to a much wider global audience, I am sure you can think of an example where you need explicitly to state who is a risk owner. And I want to hear those examples. Please share with me underneath this video in the comments section, and we can have a little debate or agree with it. I'm sure you have a lot of valid thoughts to think, but I just wanted to think about it. 99% of the time, you don't really need a concept as a risk owner, because once you integrate risk management into decision making, once you integrate it into activities, it kind of becomes obvious who should own the risks associated with that. So it would be just such a waste of effort to have another document or another activity or another mention of who the risk owner is. I think the better way of doing this is integrating risk management responsibilities and accountabilities into position descriptions, into committee charters, into department descriptions, and just state that a particular person owns the risks associated with his business activities and his decisions. And that kind of solves a lot of problems. And that's another one of the many reasons why I think risk registers are a complete waste of time as well, is that you don't really need a separate document to once again confirm somebody's risk ownership. It kind of, most of the time becomes quite obvious. So I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. Please do share them underneath this video. For me, for now, thank you and goodbye.